Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome our home church. Let us prepare our heart to heaven. Let's sing a song. The holy song, number 9, The Lord has come. Number 9, The Lord has come.
Oh, the Lord is come. Oh, the Lord is come. He has come to the country of God, shining in glorious dawn. Here is our leader and Lord, filled with our Father's light, leading all men with His word into the purpose of God. Beautiful fatherland, welcome the Lord. Come, let us sing and rejoice. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, amen. Oh, the Lord is come. Oh, the Lord is come. He has come to the land of the pure, blessing the blossom of life. Here's our ruler and king, bringing our Father's way, shattering evil and sin, building the kingdom of God. Beautiful fatherland, welcome the Lord. Come, let us sing and rejoice. Hallelujah, 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 amen. Oh, the Lord is come. Oh, the Lord is come. He has come to the mountainous land, laden with treasure untold. Here's our Savior and God, showing our Father's heart, lifting us high with His joy into the glory of God. Come, O my brothers, and welcome the Lord. Come, let us sing and rejoice. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah,
Thank you. Let us stand up, greet Heavenly Father, God, and true parents. Today is Sunday morning, January 27, 2019. Let us bow to Heavenly Father, true parents. 경배, 바로 join me in prayer. 살게 하시는 하나님 아버지 참 부모님 안녕하십니까? Most precious our beautiful loving God and true parents. Good morning. We come in front of you to receive your love and guidance and your mercy. We are grateful here in the Goram, the surrounded by mountain, still cold winds blowing and shaking up our heart and mind. But we are so grateful. The pure, the beautiful, the air and the water, it's a wonderful things to receive. You are preparing your providence to bring new truth to all people. All people liberated by your truth and love and your guidance through the free to be by the thing. We really want to inherit your heart and mind through that you can become your beautiful son and daughter. We really please you. Your beautiful shining truth can liberate our heart and lifting up the past. We are grateful. Please guide this time, reflect our heart and mind and love you and receive your word. Through your word, we can resurrect and we can rejoice with you. Please guide our pastor, can bring your truth and guidance to our people. And through that, we can move forward your providence. Thank you very much. Please bless this time and this week. I report in the name of Raman and Tamiko Montanaro. Bless Central family. Aju. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Please seated and welcome Pastor Montanaro. Welcome.
So I'm thinking of standing up today because I think it'll help me to speak more freely, because I need to use my hands and express myself. I pray that you guys can really develop your own relationships with God. Recently I've been praying every day, and when I pray, sometimes I don't even want to say anything. As soon as I start to pray, I feel God's presence. And it's so sweet and so wonderful that I don't even want to talk. I have nothing to say. I just want to sit with God. I just want to hang out with God. You know? Wouldn't that be cool to just kind of piggyback on God? You know how you used to piggyback on your father? Mm-hmm. Can't do it now, right? You'd kill me. But, you know, when you're little kids, you want to be on your father's back, right? And our true father actually spoke about that. He spoke about how his fondest memories of his childhood are being on his father's back. There's such a feeling of security. His father would come looking for him because he'd be playing outside in the hills and in the mountains all day. And he wouldn't come home for dinner, and they'd have to go out looking for him, and they'd find him sleeping on some, you know, pile of hay or just somewhere out in the mountains, you know, and some leaves, where he'd been playing all day. And his father would pick him up and he'd just vaguely realize his father was picking him up, and he'd hug his back, and his father would hold him like this and come down the mountain with him. And he would just vaguely realize he was being carried home. He would be sleeping, you know. And the feeling of security, he says, of being on his father's back, was like unlike anything else in the world, a feeling of peace. And he speaks about that feeling of peace. But that's obviously, our fathers and our mothers are just representatives of God to us. The tragedy of the human fall is that we couldn't trust our parents anymore. That our parents lost their ability to be representatives of God to their children. If you're a parent at home, you know this feeling. You know very well this feeling. I'm not ready to have children. I'm not worthy to have children. I don't have enough substance in me to give to a child. I don't deserve to have children. And if you're really honest, everyone should feel that way, I think. No one can feel, I am really ready to have children. Which is why I think so many men are afraid to get married. They know that marriage entails having children, and they don't feel ready to be a father. I think many women want to be a mother just because they love babies. And they see babies, and babies are cute. But babies don't stay babies. Puppies don't stay puppies. Kittens don't stay kittens, right? Imagine if, I mean, except for the fact they pee everywhere. Imagine if a puppy would be a puppy always, right? Who's seen Boss Baby? Who's seen Boss Baby, right? We've all seen Boss Baby, right? Do you remember that what the weapon was against children was a puppy that never grew up, right? It was always a puppy. that was the thing that would beat the baby world. You know, it was people would have puppies that would never grow up. You know, and we look on cute things, memes on the internet for cuteness or whatever, right? Or Instagram or whatever, photographs, always about puppies and kittens. There's nothing more adorable than a baby animal. And baby human beings are just as cute, right? They're adorable. So, one of my favorite videos on YouTube is the two twin boys that are trying to talk to each other. Have you seen that one? If you haven't seen that one, go on YouTube after my sermon. But go on YouTube and go for twin babies talking to each other. And there's these two little guys. They're probably just barely over 1 year old. They can barely stand. You know, they can't talk yet. They're like maybe 15 months old or something. They're wearing diapers. They're obviously twins. And they're standing in the kitchen in front of the oven. And they're talking to each other. And they're going, da 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 da. And they're just gaga googling each other, and they're like this, and they're really expressing themselves. And the other guy, it's just so adorable. They're having this conversation, and they're not saying anything, but they seem to understand each other perfectly. And it's just so cute. I'd probably have like 30 million views or something. Like that. Babies are cute, but they don't stay babies forever. They go through the terrible twos where they say no to everything. And then they become 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and then they get more and more complex. The older someone gets, the more and more complex they become. Until finally you have teenagers. And so women, I think, want babies. But I think men understand something deeply, intuitively, that they're not going to stay babies forever. And they're going to become young men and women, and that they are going to become more responsible. The men, I think, feel the sense, I have to be an example, a model. And no man feels like he's ready to do that, to be a father, to be a true father. And I think women also, if they're honest, would feel, to be a true mother, what does that mean? To really be a mother, even through the teen years and even through the 20s and 30s, to be a true mother is not easy. But I think men especially feel this, and we don't feel confident to be parents. Because of the fall, disrupted our growth as people. Adam and Eve fell in their teenage years into a temptation of illicit love. Lucifer, the angel, symbolized by a serpent in the Garden of Eden story, an angel, a beautiful angel, tempted Eve with love. He lied to her that his love could be just as good as Adam's love. He lied to her that she was ready to have love right now, that she shouldn't wait. So he lied to her on several counts. He lied to her about himself being an appropriate partner of love. He lied to her about her readiness to love. And he lied to her, concealed from her the fact that he was destroying the very ideal that God was hoping for. Love is the beginning and end of everything. So when love is accomplished, the family is accomplished. When love is broken, the family is broken. We grow up in a family. So if you destroy love in the family, the next generation suffers. And this is what happened in the family of Adam and Eve. According to the biblical record, their children murdered each other. Cain killed his younger brother Abel. And from that point on, we see a history of sin, a history of suffering, of war, of violence, until in Genesis 6, 6 chapters after the creation and 5 chapters and 4 chapters after the fall, in Genesis 6, Genesis 6:6, God says, you know, and God grieved in his heart that he had created man on the earth. He repented for creating man. God repented for creating us. The earth is filled with violence through them. And violence is their only thought of their hearts continually, day and night. That was the biblical record by Genesis 6. According to the biblical record, just 10 generations after Adam and Eve. This kind of ugliness had grown up. Everyone was ugly, spiritually ugly, because of the fall. So how important is it that we become true parents? How important is that we become true parents? Right? So this is what we're meant to be, as true parents. So when I speak, you know, to you guys, when I'm in the presence of God and I feel like I just want to be close to God, I feel so grateful to have come to that point in my life. Because when I joined our church 38 years ago, I had a very passionate, emotional connection to God. Like, every time I met God, I would weep because I was so damaged by my own parents' divorce, and I was so searching for my own meaning and so desperate to find meaning that when I met God, I would just weep. So that it wasn't peaceful. I wasn't peaceful because I had so much to clean up and restore in my own heart. It took me many years to even begin to uncover layer after layer of my own heart. And I'm still working on that. But at a certain point, I've come to where I feel like I've come to some kind of a place, a rock bottom, where I just feel very, very stable with God. When I close my eyes and pray, I can feel God right away. And I don't feel like I have to go anywhere or say anything. I just want to be with my Father. I want to be with God. Hang out with Him. Sort of hold His hand and walk around. You know? I want to know what God is thinking. What is God doing? What is God worried about? What is God concerned about right now in history? What is our situation? Excuse me. What is our situation? You know, that God is concerned about. That's what I'm, you know, if you think about it, most of the time we're really self-centered. What am I struggling about? What is my concern? Where am I at, right? We're usually worried. When we talk to God, we're always worried about our situation. But God is worrying about everyone, about us. God is concerned about the Middle East, about the violence there, the terrorism. God is concerned about North Korea and the violence that Kim Il-sung's descendants, Kim Jong-un, and Kim Jong-un is his grandson, Kim Jong-il was his son. This lineage of dictators in North Korea has created a personality cult, a cult of personality centering on Kim Il-sung and his you know, amazingness according to the North Korean propaganda, so that anyone who goes against that lineage is immediately put to death. So it's a scary place, and that kind of craziness can lead to stupid activities like shooting atomic bombs at people, weapons, you know. So we're still worried about North Korea, and I think God is also concerned about North and South Korea. And God is concerned about the United States. We're split, and we're very split politically, and the split is actually wider than it's ever been. Almost 50-50, the country's divided, and we can characterize it in many ways, but you can see that on one side are people who believe in gender transition, and that you can decide for yourself what your gender is, and that, you know, homosexual, you know, marriage is just as valid as non-homosexual marriage, and that the government should actually not just not have anything to do with, but actually promote homosexuality. And in public schools, it's being promoted under the non-bullying campaign, where homosexuality is actually being not just protected, but taught and encouraged and promoted. In one school I taught at, they had an assembly. Everyone attended, and they actually had 2 students come out on stage in front of the entire school and were applauded. And 2 other students that were clinically depressed came out and spoke about their depression. And I think it's good that we be able to embrace each other and not criticize, not hate each other. I think that's important. But why make an assembly and have the entire school, and this is a public school, so this is the government promoting a gay lifestyle. And one of the teachers actually came out at the same time. A gay teacher came out and said, "I'm gay." They don't ask me to come out and talk about my faith in God and my family. They don't ask me to talk about why I believe in family. Never had an assembly for me. Right? So the government is getting involved. At the highest level, the Supreme Court has ruled that gay marriage is legal. So that's the government getting involved. So on one side we see people who believe that this kind of is a good thing and a good trend in America. On the other side, we have people opposed to this who believe in traditional marriage between one man and one woman, and they believe that people should be more responsible for themselves, should not take government help, should not be dependent on the government. The government should not make people dependent through welfare programs and other things. And this side criticized this side of being heartless. You would let people starve, you would let people go without health care, this kind of thing. This side is saying, no, we're just saying you should encourage people to stand on their own 2 feet. And so this side is also Second Amendment, supporting the idea of freedom to carry guns and to use guns and to defend your own home with guns. So we have the Second Amendment people on this side. So this side you can characterize as more God-centered, Christian-centered, family-centered, and with guns and self-autonomy and self-determination. This side you find more government-centered, more liberal thoughts about sex and about marriage and about gender and about the government support for everybody, more socialist side. On a political spectrum, you'd say this is more socialist, this side is more libertarian. You know, no government or small government and more individual freedom. On this side, you'd find more socialist ideas. The government should play a greater role and should take out more taxes and should take care of health care and education, and finally, even maybe it should take care of all aspects of life. And that this is the trend we're seeing between these 2 sides in our country. And God is certainly concerned. And I don't think that we can characterize it, say that everyone on one side is evil and everyone on the other side is good. We can't do that. There are good people on both sides who are well-meaning and intending to do things good. But if God has to choose, and God does have to choose in a certain sense, when a president is elected, like Trump was elected 2 years ago, or now almost 3 years ago, 2 years ago, then there's an election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And Donald Trump clearly stands on this side, and Hillary Clinton clearly stands on this side. And so when God is supporting or not, does God not care? Do what you want, I don't care. No, God cares. The author of the universe, now, this is our Father, cares. Because we're His children. And God cares. And you can see where I'm going. Obviously, God is going to support the side that believes that God exists. The side that doesn't even believe that God exists, which is more the left in this country right now, believes that either God doesn't exist or God is not relevant to government and politics and things like this, and that the government should have no moral stand and should have no ethical stand except for, you know, the Me Too movement. And I've been watching some comics on Netflix, and now there's a backlash against the whole Me Too thing, and it's being supported. You can see it's being supported by the comic world. They're making fun of this whole Me Too movement because they're saying men are now more and more afraid to express any affection to a woman. How do I do it? If I ask you out on a date, you're going to accuse me of sexual harassment. If I say you look good today, I'm evil. You know, shut up. Shut up. Stop trying to, you know, what are you doing? Are you hitting on me? This whole thing, and then women are getting more and more lonely, and you see the female comics, well, like, where is a man? I want a man, but you know, it's going back and forth, and you see the split getting wider and wider between men and women, and it's not a happy situation. So God is concerned, but God is not like petty. I don't believe, and I don't think you should believe, I don't think anyone should think of God as being petty, like partisan, like I'm on this side, you're on that side, you're evil, I'm good. But in an election, God has to say which one would be better for the country. And clearly, in this last election, Donald Trump represented this side that is more libertarian, more autonomous, more independent, more supporting the family and marriage. And you can criticize Donald Trump's sexual life all you want, but clearly he's married to his wife, and they have a family, and he loves his wife, and he believes in God, and he believes that Christianity has an answer for people's problems. Now, does he practice it 100%? Is he good? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to go. I can't say his private life. Clearly, he's had multiple relationships with women. That's obvious. But right now, he represents something that is more on this side, whereas Hillary was more representing the kind of socialist view. Talk about the Me Too movement. Why isn't she dumping Bill? Here's a predator if I ever saw one, right? The guy was having sex with an intern in the Oval Office. Pretty much proven. She had his semen on her dress. She kept it as a souvenir. Okay. So this is Bill Clinton. Hillary has a long list of things also which she could be accused of. But clearly, her marriage with Bill is a marriage of convenience and maybe a political marriage at best. I don't know, maybe they've reconciled. That's fine. That's wonderful if they love each other. I think that's great. But she's standing on a ticket, on a platform that is not supporting the idea of traditional marriage. So when we look at God's point of view, I think God's number one concern is marriage and family and love. How do we do marriage? How do we do love? How do we do family? Is this direction the right direction? Should we loosen our gender concepts and choose whatever gender we want to be and whatever relationship you happen to fall into because of your choice of gender? If you're saying that you're transgender and then you're no longer a man, say you're a woman, or you identify as a woman, then are you attracted to men then? Or are you attracted to women and that makes you sort of like a lesbian transgender? Or are you... It gets pretty confusing. Do you know what I mean? And then you just say, well, I don't care. I'm whoever I'm attracted to, whoever I'm with. Maybe you're attracted to other transgender people probably or something. So then, then it's whoever I'm with. It's my choice and it's not up to you. It's not your business. Leave me alone. Okay. Well, is that the direction we want to go in as a society? Is that the direction God would support? Or would God support a more traditional view of marriage? Obviously, the traditional view has problems too. The whole thing of wife beating, or the whole thing of men being sometimes violent, or the drinking too much, and or maybe committing adultery, and women tolerating that just to keep the family together. That kind of thing we can criticize the traditional family too. So there's criticisms on both sides. But from God's point of view, He would like to see us become true parents. His original ideal was for a man and a woman, Adam and Eve. And by the way, you may think that's a myth. But science has proven that all human beings on the planet descend from one woman. That's outstanding. That's outstanding. The mitochondrial Eve. Look it up if you like online. By studying the DNA and the mitochondria of women, we can prove that all women essentially come from one woman. So if you don't believe in the idea of Adam and Eve, you have to ask yourself the question, did that one woman have multiple partners? Perhaps. Maybe there's more than one Adam. There's Adam and Steve and, Paul and George. But the Bible account says Adam and Eve, one man and one woman. And if the Bible account's right about there being one woman, maybe it's right about there being one man. That our ancestors are one ancestor. And it makes sense. Think about the biology of the human body. We have how many trillions of cells in our body? I don't know. No one knows, really, exactly how many cells there are in a human body, right? Josh, do you know how many cells there are in a human body? No. But how many cells did we begin with? At conception, you have a sperm cell and an egg cell. But they're not a full cell, are they? The sperm cell has 23 chromosomes, and the egg cell has 23 chromosomes. They're half. And then when they come together, the first thing they create is a zygote. Is a one-celled organism. A one cell! Composed of half the masculine side and half the feminine side. Do you see the analogy? Isn't it brilliant? Don't you see? Don't you see? It's not just religion, it's science. Scientifically, we begin with one man and one woman. One male and one female cell come together and form a zygote. And that multiplies until finally you have the differentiation of all the different cells of our body, and an amazing human being comes out of that. Wow! So by analogy, don't you think it possible that all the human race descended from one set of parents? Sure. Sure. And to speak of that, evolution, and this goes into a complicated argument, which I've done before in other sermons, but I want to mention it. It's connected to this one idea of one Adam and one Eve. Is it possible for a random mutation in a proto-horse, something that's halfway between a hippopotamus and a horse that they say existed first, to suddenly change and become a zebra? Actually, zebras can mate with other kinds of horses and things like that. So let's call, say, a giraffe. Okay, so that a giraffe comes out of a horse. Wow. Okay. First of all, if that mutation were in any way unsuccessful, it would die. 99.9999% of mutations that occur in the natural world die because they're dysfunctional. The mutation is actually a damage to their chromosome and their genetic makeup, and it doesn't function. When it does function, if it is different enough from its parent, it can't mate with anything because its genetics are different. So then, if you have a giraffe coming out of a horse, it can't mate with any of the horses around. So it's going to grow up lonely. Lonely, lonely indeed. Right? Some movie quote. But anyway, it's in Sky High. Do you remember the teacher? He'd be a very lonely superhero. Lonely, lonely superhero. So, that poor little giraffe would be a lonely little giraffe. No girl giraffe to play with. No boy giraffe to play with. It's going to have to be born one or the other, right? Male or female, right? So what are the chances that a giraffe comes out, a male giraffe comes out of a proto-horse, and at the same time, in the same place, exact same time, because even a giraffe can live, what, 20, 30 years, I don't know how long, but it's not that long. So what are the chances that in that exact same time frame, in that exact same place, another exact same genetic mutation that is also a giraffe came out? Are you nuts? Are you nuts? Stop thinking about evolution as random. It's not random. It's clearly guided by the hand of God. And lest you think, well, we can have slow genetic mutations, the neck gets a little longer each time, that we would see in the fossil record this slow, weird genetic thing of like soup. We'd see all kinds of fossils. We don't. We see clearly defined species. And that's it. And scientists go, I wonder where the missing links are. Morons. Morons. The evidence is clear, scientifically speaking. If you're a good scientist, you know that it's not possible. The probabilities are astronomical that even one species different from a previous species could randomly mutate. God's hand was there. So that means all giraffes came from one male and one female that met. And they made little baby giraffes, and they made more baby giraffes, and then all the giraffes came out. And then God said, that's cool, I like giraffes. And then he said, let's make a striped one with a short neck. And then coming out of that same proto-horse, there's a mutation, which God is controlling genetically in the DNA of the original cell, you know, modifying it. And then boom, you have two little zebras that come out. Oh, we have zebras. Look at, they're striped, I like it. And now let's make, you know, a horse. Ooh, let's make it a kind of a beautiful, look at the mane flowing. And let's make a unicorn. No, he didn't make a unicorn. Maybe he did. A rhino. Yeah, rhinos are connected to that. They're the same family. And hippopotamus too. They're all part of the horse family. Let's make a fat horse, you know, that lives in the water. You know. So that God is having fun creating all these creatures. Why? Why? Why?
For the children.
For us. How much fun do kids have when they go to the zoo? Even a petting zoo. But when you go to a real zoo, isn't that the coolest thing to see all these different animals? Kids love the zoo. God created all the animal kingdom as a museum, not a museum, a zoo, a beautiful natural garden for us to walk in, see different plants and animals, to see giant redwood trees, to see little tiny flowers, and beautiful flowers, and big flowers, and that stinky flower. What is that flower called? The one that blooms every like 13 years and smells like poop. What is that? You've heard of that flower, right? It blooms. It's in the desert. It blooms. I think it's in the desert. It blooms only once every. It makes a giant flower like this big, and it literally this big, and it smells like poop. It's terrible, but it's really people who love flowers just love it because
it's a rainforest.
It's in the rainforest. But if people love it because it's just so weird, and it's every 13 years it blooms, and it's just awful, you know. But God is very creative.
Yeah.
God is creative. Made of colors. Look at the colors. Why do you need a bird that has a long beak like this? That's many colors. It doesn't need to be many colors. It could just be brown. But God made it many colors.
He's an artist.
Yeah, God's an artist. Maybe for the Fruit Loop cereal, right? Let me grab this for a second. Josh is pointing something out. This is just a few of the many, many butterflies that exist in the world. Look how beautiful this is. Do we need all these different colors of butterflies? Is this something we need? No. Look at this blue one. By the back, look at the back. They're completely different. Look at the blue one is brown on the back. It's amazing. Look at that. These are beautiful.
Amazing.
God's amazing. This is just butterflies. Every insect is cool, except for the ones that bite us. Right? Every insect is cool. Maybe we've all asked ourselves the question, why did God create mosquitoes? Right? I think everyone's asked that question. And black flies and chiggers and ticks and bed bugs and all these different insects. We do ask these questions sometimes, and maybe God will tell us sometime, you know. He didn't want us to get too comfortable. Yeah, maybe he didn't want us to get too comfortable here. He said, because maybe in the spiritual world there's no mosquitoes. Oh. Anyway, God exists. Our Father exists. He loves us. He created this universe for us. And God does care about everything we do in our lives. God doesn't control history, But God cares about history. And God will guide us. We are in charge of history, not God. But we're God's children. So if we listen to God, then how's history going to go?
God's kingdom.
God's kingdom. You want to know in a nutshell the divine principle Reverend Moon's teaching? That's it. God wants to build his kingdom. He's not doing it himself. We do it with our lives, our hands, our minds, our hearts. So we decide what we want to create. God's involvement is with us, individually. Through a relationship with us, if we choose to listen to God's voice, if we choose to care what God cares about, we will naturally start to do the things that God wants us to do. So when I shout out that we have to stop the confusion about gender, I'm not saying we should persecute people. I'm saying we should stimulate everyone's original mind to begin searching for the original masculinity or original femininity that God put in each of us and celebrate that and find that. And to clean up, both sides have problems to clean up, but we should begin to clean it up and make good families. And find our true nature with God. Let us live in the presence of God. Let us love in the presence of God. I want God to be in the bedroom with my wife and me when we're making love. My children are covering their head. Don't you think God should be there? God would want, that would be the most precious place. Why? Am I just making things up? Am I just being a little bit wild here? No, I can back it up. What relationship creates life? What greater thing is there than creating life? We're co-creating life with God when we make love. Is there anything more precious than that? Is eating more precious? Is sleeping? Is working? Is building a skyscraper? Is anything I do more precious than creating life? Objectively speaking, we can say no. A human life is worth the universe. Right? One life can change the world. And certainly even a bad person, one life can change the world in a bad way. But I'm saying we care about capital punishment, right? In this country there's a big debate about capital punishment, whether we should put people to death or not. And you could have national news focusing on the death of one person. Even though that person was a convicted murderer or something, or rapist, or something that deserves the capital punishment, still national attention will go on one person's life. And not particularly a good person. But we pay attention. Life has that much value. So when we can create a life together by our love relationship, don't you think that's the most precious thing that human beings can do together? And if it is, wouldn't God deserve to be there and want to be there? And shouldn't we want God to be there? And this is the ideal of the unification movement for marriage, is that we clear out our confusions and our doubts and our stupidities and our blocks to God, and we get into a relationship with God as a man and as a woman. And then in that state of building a relationship with God, we marry. And we ask for and receive God's blessing on our marriage. This is the realm that Reverend Moon created, that Jesus wanted to create but who could not create. So this is good news for Christianity. Paul suggested everyone be celibate. St. Paul in the Bible, in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, if you read it, very clearly he's suggesting that if it were possible, he would wish everyone could be celibate, not married. He didn't understand. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, God says, be fruitful, multiply and fill the earth and have dominion over all things. So God's commandment to Adam and Eve was to marry, to reach perfection, be fruitful, multiply and fill the earth, marry and have children, and then have dominion over all things. Love, not just dominion in the sense of beating things up, but dominion in the sense of caring for all things. So that's my message today. Let us live in the presence of God. Let us love in the presence of God. Let us marry in the presence of God. Let us have children in the presence of God. Let us spend every moment of the day in the presence of God. Let us work and make money in the presence of God. Let us care for this world in the presence of God. Let us die in the presence of God. And let us live in the presence of God for eternity in the spiritual world. If we're not in the presence of God here, how can we hope to be in the presence of God there? Right? Would you like to share anything, honey?
Yeah, the marriage, talking about marriage, man and woman, it's in the past, it's very hateful, like the world showing us. But in a sense, to restore the hate, we have to respect each other and love each other. It's a old relationship. Who you married, it's you know, if you see that you have a certain character, but the embrace both of the character, that we see that the future, our marriage is a promise to God and a promise to each other and a promise to the future descendants. Through that, the conquer of the three or 4 points, the conquer that our marriage is stable. But in the case, all temptation will come, you know, because the man is externally tempted. If a beautiful woman coming in front of him, it's not easy to reject. But the wife have to have the kind heart and love and embrace more, and then respect husband. Through that the relationship, we can keep him to the right place to love wife, and also the wife have a temptation. If a handsome guy coming to you to try to love you, it's not easy to say no. But you have to remember that the lineage you created, and you have to promise to the children also. Through that, you have to constantly reminding who you are and who is your spouse and who is children, and then descendants, future descendants. You cannot shame of our action and word and the heart. If you conquer that four kind of relationship is stronger, you cannot make mistake. You can't make mistake. That's why our blessing is grateful, but the blessing itself is a high purpose and a high ground. To ourselves is still growing, and to the complete it is not easy. But we have a hope. We have a hope. If you remember this, you can do the eternal beauty of love coming through you, coming through husband, coming through children, and bit by bit, it's making the godly family, godly nation, godly world. We can be the beautiful, living place to be. That is, we are creating. Each of us have to create that kind of world. That's why the everyday prayer, the promise to God to make that kind of world, to centering true love, is most challenging but most beautiful to create. We want to recommend you can find that world in your heart and mind, and you can find your spouse with same vision and same family, and then go on to the world.
Thank you. All right, so you guys, let's make good, true families, but let's live in the presence of God, okay? Let's make everything our lives an offering to God, so that our lives are an offering to God. So everything we do, whether it's loving or living or working or sleeping, everything we do should be an offering to God, so we can never be ashamed to be in God's presence. Let's pray. Dear Father, we want to thank you for today's words. Father, every word I say is a reflection and a homage to our true parents. Father said everything I'm saying before me. He spoke volumes and volumes of words in his lifetime. Literally over 500 volumes, texts of Father's speeches are existing now in the world. And Father tried to summarize certain themes in various books and various speeches. But Father's words covered the entire, they ran the gamut of all of human experience, Father. And as we study and read Father's words, we realize that his heart was always tuned to you, Father. And he brought into this world words that reflect his relationship with you and his experience with you and your vision and hope for us. And so if we read and study our true parents' words along with Jesus' words in the Bible, Father, we will be strong, we will be clear, we will have a clear vision for our lives, Father. I ask your blessing on this day. I pray for everyone listening here and at home that they can challenge themselves, they can be excited to live their lives as an offering, Father, and that we can all make our lives an offering to you, Father, and that we can live in your presence for the rest of our lives. I ask your blessing on this day, and I offer everything in the name of Raman and Tamiko Montanaro, blessed central family. 축복 중심 가정, 라만과 타미코 몬타나리 이름으로 포고드립니다. 아주. 아멘. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.